You know that feeling when you've seemingly checked all the boxes of modern success? Maybe you have the job, the stability, the perfectly comfortable life, but you still wake up feeling just deeply burned out or anxious or unfulfilled? Well, listen, you are absolutely not alone in that. So let's dive right into this explainer because today we are unpacking a really fascinating, highly structured philosophical framework by authors Yufeng that tackles this exact modern paradox. We're going to explore the absolute fundamental requirements for actual human fulfillment, and we're looking at it from two very distinct angles: the external rights we need to navigate the physical world, and the internal state of our consciousness. And we're going to kick things off with a highly provocative claim about what it actually means to be a functioning human being. Right off the bat, the source text establishes a pretty bold baseline. According to Shofeng, the greatest creator has endowed humanity with specific foundational rights. Now, these aren't privileges handed down by a government or an institution or your boss, meant to be earned through, good behavior or hard work. No, they are entirely innate. And the logic presented here is really striking. Just linger on this for a second. If you are lacking these rights, it simply means someone has actively taken them from you. It completely frames human rights, not as some ongoing political negotiation, but as an undeniable, non-negotiable cosmic inheritance. Because of that, the author directly challenges us to reflect with a rather piercing question. Are you actually living as a true human being? It really forces us to pause and take an honest inventory of our own lives, right? If we're missing these foundational rights, the text argues, we're operating at a severe deficit. We aren't fully experiencing the human condition. We're just surviving a compromised version of it. Which leads us perfectly into the first pillar of this philosophy. Pillar 1, the external foundation, exploring the 8 fundamental rights. Okay, let's actually build out that external foundation. The text outlines 8 fundamental rights required for a peaceful, harmonious society where individuals can experience real joy and true freedom. Survival, creation, migration, speech, autonomy, thought, learning, and refusal. These are the absolute mandatory elements for a fulfilled life. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand about Su Feng's argument here is that this is a package deal. Lacking even one of these causes profound personal discomfort and inevitable societal conflict. Think about it. You might have the right to survive, sure, but if you don't have the right to migrate, to freely move across the earth to find better resources, your survival is inherently threatened. If you have the right to speak but are denied the right to learn, your speech is totally hollow. Lacking one piece of this puzzle basically topples the rest. Let's zoom in on a couple of the most intriguing ones to really get a feel for this. What's truly interesting is how absolute Su Feng is regarding personal autonomy. To really grasp this, consider how strictly it's defined here. It dictates that your body belongs to you, and you alone. No other person, no institution, no corporation has a claim to it. You alone determine how your body is used, where it goes, and what it does. Any prevention of this free control is categorized as a direct deprivation of your humanity. When you think about the real-world implications of that, absolute bodily autonomy, it challenges literally everything from modern labor expectations, where we effectively rent our bodies to corporations, all the way to societal norms that dictate how we should look or behave. And this brilliantly illustrates another crucial, yet honestly often completely overlooked element: the right to refuse. Think about how incredibly powerful this is in your day-to-day life. The text explicitly protects individuals from having unaligned ideas or methods forcefully imposed on them. Picture a toxic workplace culture that demands you adopt some hyper-competitive mindset that just goes against your nature, or societal expectations pushing you into a lifestyle you don't actually want. If something doesn't align with your personality or your wishes, you have an innate cosmic right to simply say no. Without the right to refuse all those other rights we just talked about, they become incredibly vulnerable to manipulation. But here is where this entire framework takes a massive, fascinating turn. This is the central pivot. Imagine a scenario where you actually pull it off. You successfully secure all 8 of these external rights. You have total, absolute autonomy over your body. You migrate wherever you want. You speak your mind. You exercise your right to refuse. Your external world is perfectly peaceful. Yet, you still suffer. You still wake up feeling anxious or miserable or entirely unfulfilled. How on earth is that possible? If the external environment is perfectly optimized, why are you still experiencing an internal hell? Pillar 2, the internal experience, pain as a conscious illness. This brings us to the second half of the explainer, an exploration of internal suffering. And the source text presents a really radical thesis here: the profound idea that your lingering pain is never actually caused by the external world. The author posits that pain itself is a form of conscious illness. This is a massive paradigm shift.
It means that heaven and hell are entirely states of mind, not physical locations or external circumstances. Whenever you feel deep, chronic emotional pain, it isn't because the world around you is broken. It means your consciousness itself has become sick and gone astray. You're reacting to the world through a diseased lens, basically distorting reality to generate your own suffering.
Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. What about actual, tangible, real-world problems? The text definitely acknowledges these. It lists major real-world stressors: severe illness, unpaid home loans, lockdowns, intense power struggles, or even something as deeply personal as a cheating partner. Naturally, our human instinct is to immediately blame these external triggers for our misery, right? But the text argues firmly that these are just circumstances. They're simply events unfolding in the timeline of the world. Think about how radical it is to claim that a devastating betrayal isn't the actual source of your pain. The philosophy asserts that feeling soul-crushing agony over these events is actually a symptom of that internal conscious illness. If you continually point the finger at the external trigger, your pain will literally never end, because the world is never going to stop throwing triggers at you.
The text actually categorizes suffering into 3 distinct types: physical, mental, and spiritual. Physical is purely bodily, like a broken leg. Spiritual is a profound crisis of worldview or values, maybe a sudden loss of faith. Both of those are significant, for sure, but the text explicitly notes that for the vast majority of people, mental and emotional pain far surpasses the others in both frequency and intensity. It is the daily mental suffering, the anxiety, the resentment, the emotional agony derived entirely from how we choose to process the world around us that truly traps us in our own personal, inescapable hell.
There's an incredibly vivid analogy used here to really drive this concept home. It suggests that if you took a person with a sick, untreated consciousness and magically, instantly transported them into literal paradise, they would still suffer. They would sit in heaven and find something to be angry about. They'd find a reason to feel slighted or betrayed or anxious about the future. Because their internal hell generates the pain automatically, regardless of how perfect the external environment is. The takeaway is pretty blunt. You cannot escape a sick mind simply by changing your zip code or upgrading your lifestyle.
So, what exactly is making the mind so sick in the first place? Well, the text defines the true root cause of this conscious illness as being obstinate and unenlightenment. And what does that mean in practical terms? It's defined as an intense, rigid attachment to the self. It is the human ego run entirely wild. It's that state of constantly believing that you are right, everyone else is wrong, and attributing all your discomfort to external factors while entirely refusing to self-reflect. And we really should linger on this because modern society often actively reinforces this external blame mentality. Through social media and cultural narratives, we're frequently encouraged to adopt a victim mindset, where everything wrong in our lives is framed as someone else's fault. This text argues that giving in to that mindset is the exact origin point of your conscious illness. And the consequences of staying in this state are incredibly severe. Once a person falls into this rigid habit of blaming the outside world, they are effectively refusing the only available cure. The text describes rigorous self-reflection and self-awareness as the necessary medicine for a sick consciousness. If you refuse to take that medicine, if you refuse to look inward and correct your own erroneous thinking, the text starkly warns that your conscious illness becomes terminal. What does a terminal conscious illness look like in day-to-day life? It looks like lifelong bitterness. It looks like chronic isolation, where you push everyone away because you're convinced they are the problem. It is an endless loop of misery entirely of your own making. Which leaves us with a profound final thought to reflect upon in our own lives, tying both of these foundational pillars together. As we navigate the world, rightly advocating for those 8 fundamental external rights, the right to survive, to move freely, to speak, to refuse, we really have to stop and ask ourselves, are we also doing the necessary internal work? Are you just treating the surface symptoms by frantically trying to control the outside world and the people in it? Or are you actively working to cure your own conscious illness through deep, honest self-reflection? It's an incredibly powerful framework to view your life through. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I truly hope it sparks some deeply rewarding self-reflection for you today.